Oh boy, we are back yet again to talk about the brand new Apple Watches that were just announced at Apple's event, the Glow Time event, like a few minutes ago. Now, unfortunately, as you can see here, I'm in my studio. I was not invited to Apple this year, but I still want to talk about them and share my thoughts about them, and unfortunately, these are not the new devices. Okay, so what was announced at Apple today? Well, there's the brand new Apple Watch Series 10, and then there's the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Yes, the Ultra 2, which is the same watch I have here, but there are some changes to it. More on that in a minute. But when it comes to the physical hardware of the Series 10, they have tweaked the design. The hardware has changed from this Series 9 I have here. The Apple Watch Series 10 features a new, larger display and a new, thinner form factor, along with more rounded edges to make it a little bit more comfortable. Apple stated that the new Series 10 will have 30% more screen real estate compared to the Series 6, which is a pretty big leap in terms of screen real estate. And what that buys you is more text on the screen. You can have more text at a given time. All of Apple's internal apps have been updated to utilize this increased real estate, so you can just cram more information at a glance, which I do appreciate. And overall, the look of the Series 10 from the renderings that they showed during the event did look much more modern, thanks to that larger display and shrunken down bezels. And when it comes to the display, they're also using a new display technology called wide angle OLED. And the idea behind that is when you're actually staring at your watch at an angle, as you can see on the Ultra 2 here, if I go at a severe angle, you do lose a little bit of brightness on the display. And that's just due to the way these pixels are built. They're sort of in little miniature columns, so when you're at an angle like this, you do lose a tiny bit of brightness, although it's not a big deal in my opinion, just because of how bright Apple Watches are. But with this new wide angle technology, Apple's saying that the display will be brighter at more severe angles. And along with that new wide angle OLED display, they're also saying that the display is more power efficient. So that's the display on the new Apple Watch Series 10. Now let's talk about the actual case itself, because the overall dimension of the thickness of the case has been shrunken down. They've now got the Apple Watch Series 10 down to 9.7 millimeters, which is incredibly thin. And I'm wondering if that includes the little bump out for the heart rate sensor as well. I have to assume it's not, because that would be crazy thin. And to achieve that thinner form factor on the case of the watch, they had to shrink down all the internal components like the speaker, the chipset, and they had to build the LTE antenna into the back case of the watch. So the back of the watch is actually made out of metal now, because that's the new LTE antenna, where previously it was housed inside the watch. Along with that thinner profile, the new Apple Watch Series 10 also gets 10% lighter because of less materials being used. Generally speaking, they just sort of shrunk everything down inside the watch to accomplish that new form factor. And on top of that, they updated the speaker so you can actually play music from your watch through the speaker of the Apple Watch Series 10 as well. So if you're listening to Spotify, Apple Music, podcasts, whatever, you can actually listen right through your watch if you're out on a run and forget your earbuds or something like that. Now, personally, I can't really think of a scenario where I'd want to do that, but I guess if the speaker quality is good enough, it might be something people will do. Another change with the hardware on the Apple Watch Series 10 is an improved charging coil on the back of the watch. Apple says that they've increased the size of that charging coil and made it more efficient, so the Apple Watch Series 10 now fast charges in 30 minutes up to 80%, which is nice to see, because on the downside with the Apple Watch Series 10, the battery life is still the same, spec'd 18 hours as previous generations. Another new hardware feature to the Apple Watch Series 10 is that they've also added the depth sensor, similar to what we had on the Apple Watch Ultra 2 here, to the new Apple Watch Series 10. However, it is a little bit different than the Ultra 2, because the Ultra 2 is dive rated down to like 40 meters. The depth sensor on the Series 10 can go down to 6 meters or about 20 feet. So I guess this would be good for people who do free diving casually, and maybe you're not a full-blown scuba diver, but this could be useful for the right person. And it does have all the similar features that you find on the Apple Watch Ultra 2, where it will automatically launch the depth gauge when you enter the water. Along with the depth sensor, the Apple Watch Series 10 will also pick up water temperature when you're actually doing an open water swim or free diving or in the pool, and that will be available as a metric after your activity. There's also going to be a couple of other new features announced at this event, including a new Tides app that will be able to give you tide information when you're at the beach or surfing or doing any of those oceanic activities. The new Apple Watch Series 10 also comes in a few new colors. You've got the standards like silver and rose gold, but there's also a new jet black option that's like a polished black case, and I thought the renderings looked really cool on this, so I'm hopeful to get my hands on that. But on top of the 3 color options for the standard version of the Series 10, there's also a new Series 10 titanium version that'll cost a little bit more, and that also looked really cool as well. Another benefit to the titanium version is that it also has sapphire glass instead of the standard Ion X glass of the Series 10, which is way more scratch resistant than the standard glass. The last topic I want to mention about about the hardware of the new Apple Watch Series 10 is the new internal chipset. So there's a new S10 SiP that replaces the previous generation S9 SiP. And I don't really understand the differences between S9 and S10. They did show some diagrams that showed that the new S10 processor has like additional neural cores for more AI stuff, and I have to assume that's related to the new Siri features that are rolling out with Apple Intelligence and their AI stuff. But at this time, after watching that event video, all of the features look pretty similar, from crash detection to double tap and all of the other stuff we saw on previous generations, with a couple of new added features. And one of those new features is sleep apnea detection on the new Apple Watch Series 10, which is really interesting. There's going to be a new metric with the Apple Watch Series 10 called breathing disturbances that's actually picked up using the accelerometer inside the watch. I'm not sure how they're doing that. I assume they'd be using the microphone to pick up snoring, but this is actually using the accelerometer for sleep apnea detection. That breathing disturbances metric will sync over to Apple Health. You'll get a graph of all of your breathing disturbances throughout the night, and you'll be able to identify a poor night of sleep from a good night of sleep. The Apple Watch Series 10 will be available for $399 at launch for the base model and GPS only, and it goes all the way up to $499 for the LTE version. Next up, let's talk about the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Again, because at the Apple event, they announced the Apple Watch Ultra 2 as if it was some brand new device, but the Apple Watch Ultra 2 has been around for a while now, and I have a lot of questions. So they opened this big announcement about the Apple Watch Ultra 2 by pretty much reiterating all of the features of this watch, from the dual band GPS to the depth sensor and all of the use cases for Ironman and ultra running and climbing and all of that stuff. But the reason why they didn't change the name is because it's basically the same watch, just with a new updated color, which, to be frank, I am really excited about, but it is generally the same watch. So the Apple Watch Ultra 2 now comes in satin black, and it looks pretty awesome. This was actually what I was hoping they would do from the beginning. When they first announced the Apple Watch Ultra 1, I was hoping there would be a black version because I just thought it would look really cool in that color. That new black satin color is a new PVD coating process that they use on the titanium of the Apple Watch Ultra 2 that Apple claims is incredibly scratch resistant. I'll be sure to put that to the test, but I do believe it because PVD coatings are generally pretty scratch resistant. They're not scratch proof by any means, but it should be pretty durable. Aside from that, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is the same watch, same display, same display brightness, and as far as I can tell, the same internal processor, having last generation's S9 SiP instead of this new S10 SiP. I could be wrong, but that's the way it seemed at the time of watching this event. Another update to the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is all of the bands. Because it does come in that new black color, the new bands all sort of complement the new matte black color. And at a software level, it seems like the Apple Watch Ultra 2 will have the same features as the Apple Watch Series 10, including the sleep apnea detection and all of that health-related stuff that's kind of baked into Apple Watch OS 11. The new Apple Watch Ultra 2 in satin black will come in at the same price as the previous generation at $799. Those are all the new features in the new Apple Watch Series 10 and the new Apple Watch Ultra 2. Now, I just want to quickly share my thoughts and opinions on these new updates. Obviously, most of the changes came to the Apple Watch Series 10. And to be honest, I'm not sure who was asking for a thinner Apple Watch. It is cool that they were able to shrink down the size and bring the weight down and make it even thinner than it already was. But this Apple Watch Series 9 I have here was already thin enough for me, at least. The larger display on the Apple Watch Series 10 is cool in my opinion, and I'm really intrigued by that new wide-angle OLED technology to see if it's actually easier to view in direct sunlight at different angles. That could be a pretty big benefit as well. And on top of that, the new depth sensor and water temperature sensor on the Apple Watch Series 10 is pretty interesting for those of you out there who go free diving and maybe you don't want to spend a ton of money on a proper dive watch. This one should be able to fit the bill for casual recreational activities like snorkeling or going swimming in the pool. I'm also generally pretty happy about the improved charging times on Series 10 because that's a good segue into the downsides of Series 10. And to start, the battery life. I was really hoping that Apple would improve the battery life in both the Ultra 2 and the Series 10, but according to their spec sheets, it's the same battery life. Generally speaking, you're going to get 1 day out of the Apple Watch Series 10. You'll be charging that watch every single day, and on the Ultra 2, maybe 2 days to 3 days, depending on your use case. And honestly, from a sport watch perspective, somebody using a Garmin or a Coros or an Apple Watch or whatever, that's really the Achilles heel to that person switching over to an Apple Watch, because those those people are used to like 2 to 3 weeks of battery life in some cases, where the Apple Watch, even on the Ultra version that costs $800, is still limited to that 2 to 3 day time frame unless you drop into some of the power saving modes. In either case, this was just an initial reaction to the announcement of the Apple Watch Series 10 and Ultra 2. That's what I think about them so far. I just wanted to lay all the facts out there to give it to you all in one place. And of course, I will be getting my hands on the new Series 10 and Ultra 2 in satin black, and I will have full reviews about them coming in the very near future. So make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss those down the road. And with that, we've reached the end of this quick video. Hopefully you found it helpful, and if you did, I would really appreciate it if you'd drop down and give me the old thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, leave a comment, and check out the description down below where you will find links to pick up your own Apple Watch Series 10 or Apple Watch Ultra 2 in the satin black color. I feel like I have to say that every time now. And while you're down there shopping, also check out the links over to my other social media accounts like my Threads, my Instagram, my Strava, and of course my merch store where you can pick up a sweet t-shirt like this. And it's over. We've reached the end. I hope you found it helpful. See you next time. Bye.